hello. Wait a minute. Ah, what the fuck? Hello? Hello, camera? What do you do? Oh, hello. Okay then. Hello, Donut. Hello, Leah. Hello, Lee. How are you? Camera banan ke. Actually, you know what? Camera gonna be the best one today. I ain't gonna have any motion blur or anything background blur. Hello, people. Welcome to stream. I is late. I didn't oversleep. Result is good. I didn't oversleep. Just to be clear. I was what was I doing? Anyhow, my cousins came over, so I was letting them play some games on my PC. So they enjoyed it. They thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was fun for me as well. So yeah, they were very excited. I let them play Overcooked, which me and Avinish had played before. I was yelling at him. I still remember it. Fun. I legit was a point where he got so mad at me. It's still one of my favorite games, memories. He got so mad, he's like, I'll come to your place and start beating you up. So, yes, I will see you play with Avi on stream. I mean, we could, but he's not there though. Even today, like, we were talking a bit, and he kind of completely got. He went out as again, college work, etc. etc. When he's available, of course. The question is, when is he available? Also, I like how the game just fucking crashed on me. Perfect. These kids, right? These kids are playing it Overcooked. They were so adamant of not stopping till they got like 3 stars. Their mom is like, let's go. They're like, nah, no 3 star, I know, go. His brother and sister, they're after that 3 star for a while. I finally got it though. Good while, but they definitely did get it. Fun. Anywho, how has your day been, people? I'm sorry, I have been blabbering my own shit. How has your day been, Donut? How was your day today? How was your day, Leah? Should I given him a 5-star chocolate bar? All I have is cough tablets. I don't think they would enjoy that. Not cough tablets, cough chocolates. So I don't think they would enjoy that either. So, yeah, no. I see. Good day. Interesting. Thought you'd be busy or something. Oh yeah, my sister got me a pen from Japan. I don't know why it's so small in size though, right? Huh? Ah yes, the cough syrup. Cough syrup. Okay, cough syrup is here, okay? Today I won't do that mistake. I'll make sure I do it like this.
On The Walking Dead.
I can't even take care of myself. How am I supposed to raise a child?
Sorry,
I wasn't truthful when I came across y'all at the lodge. Now folks are dead, and I can't help but feel I'm
very
to
busy,
blame.
but can't a busy day be good? I don't know. No, under the table stuff. Hey, no, mate. Hey, yo. Hey. It's cough syrup.
Stop it!
No, sassy wassy.
Kenny!
Kenny,
When
no.
you cover yourself in their smell, rub the walker guts all over you. They can't tell you from one of them. You just have to keep calm and make sure you're good and covered.
So is anything else?
Go on. You don't need to see this.
I'm not going
No,
anywhere.
but you know how it is. Good day, hello, good day. I didn't oversleep. My cousins came over, little kids. They wanted to play some games. I let them play some Overcooked. Though the brother and sister were playing Overcooked, I was like, you know what? Stream can wait. Kids' happiness matters to me more than stream. Stream will happen. So I'm like, hey. Lama, he sounds so guilty. I am not guilty. Please. I didn't sleep. I didn't oversleep. I didn't get to like the sleeping part. I was midway going through to the dream world. My mom is like, look, your sister's here. Cousin sister. I was like, oh, why, let me go check on that. Okay.
Come on, babe.
Penny! She's dead, man.
Leave her alone! She's not dead!
It was bit. I had to do it.
Fucking dare you, Clementine! It isn't gonna go like this.
Kenny!
I won't be left alone again. We're gonna leave. We're gonna get out of this.
Kenny!
I don't care what these fuckers are saying. You're gonna be fine.
We can't make it without you. We'll have to let her go.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Kenny!
Okay.
Damn it,
Might have been a
man.
bad decision.
Come on!
Couldn't just stream yesterday because I had to go to the hospital because Huh? Little kids matter more than... Okay, damn it. Don't word it like that, damn it. Don't word my statements like that. Act, Sarita. I know, right? I was like, what? No. Do not word me like that. Excuse me. My nephews and niece were more important. Yes. Oh my god, I should word myself much better. Couldn't join stream yesterday because I had to go to the hospital because I passed out randomly. Are you okay? Because I was too stressed out lately and now the final semester started. Maybe just try. Maybe I was too stressed out lately and now the final semester starts and I'm already stressed. Need to talk. See, I know I shouldn't say you need to relax. That's not gonna help. But maybe you need to talk it out, right? You can ping any of us. You can chill and talk to us if you want to get your mind out of a very bad state. Like if you're very stressed about it, you can talk it out. Usually talking it out helps more than anything as far as I've seen. Have you tried sleeping? Okay. Fair point as well. First day, they let us know that our performance task, each subject isn't going to be easy. Thing is, I'm most worried is I have to do the 3-minute animation. Oh yeah, you were talking about it the last time, right? Yeah, I remember. You did say that most of the things are done by you and your teammates aren't helping either, so that's not a good thing. So yeah, maybe just tell them to work on the fillers or something, right, between the animations. Get them the main base of 1 minute and let them fill out the rest of the time somehow. I don't know. Not at all. I tell them to add impact frames. Maybe try. I would have gone for it. Alright then. You need to join stream. It will help help de-stress because yes. Okay then. Very much reasoning. As soon as you replied, there is a long ass ad. I can't hear anything you say. Okay, how much did you miss? Okay, so what I'm saying is you can always talk to us, right? If you don't want to talk to us, you can always talk to Leah. You can ping her. She will be there to listen to your problems, right? She's a nice person as far as I know. Scary, but nice. So don't worry about it. If you feel like someone else, it is also a good listener as far as I know. Did your headphones die? Mine? No. It's fine. I can still hear like buzz noises from the game. I hardly sleep when I stress, which makes me dizzy. So yeah. Do you have the only problem? I will listen to gossips too. I mean, go for you. I don't know. He has a long ass apparently. I don't have a long ass. What is a long ass, first of all? Or if you wanna rant about still streaming late. Hey, I had to. Okay, this was a had to situation. Don't wanna just bother someone to tell them my problems. They already have problems of their own. I wouldn't say it being a bother, right? Because end of the day, people are the only things that can actually understand you, right? AI might, animals, it's self-satisfaction, but people will actually understand you. If you get the right person, you can actually talk to them and they'll understand you. So yes, the smile between the butt between the smile is just eerie. I'll try as much as possible. It's fine. Okay, don't think too much. You can talk to Hitch, you can talk to Leah, you can talk to anyone. It's fine. You can always ping them. I'm pretty sure they'll be willing to listen to whatever you have to say. Yes. Weird. That's a weird fetish dude bumping into ankles and stares into the wall. Anywho, I ain't judging nobody.
Fucking right.
Of course. I was distracted. Hey, you like ducks with human feet solution. Hey, yo, chill. That's not true. No, it's a game. Okay, we were playing a game long back called Dark Deception, where there was ducks with human legs. It's not that. I am innocent. Please, being honest. I ain't like that. No.
Going after Sarah!
Kenny?
So, a grown man and he's able to push it off. You see his YouTube videos of Dark Deception. Ah, yes. I'm not sure, right, if I have it or not. I think I deleted it like a while ago. So I don't have the base files anymore. I had kept it just to be safe. Wait, what happened? Why are they in hordes of zombies? Lot of story happened, right, in 2 days. In 2 days, lot of story happened. DM me, hang on.
Luke was with me.
Oh my god, unbelievable.
I can't do this alone.
We should try to find them.
We know where we're supposed to meet. We just need to get there. Look, the walkers are still moving toward the hardware store. We can make it
Nick
happen.
got shot. Hello, Night Fury. How are you? I'm a bit late today. I was.
We can watch each other's back.
I'll stick with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, what was I saying?
Clear path to the trees.
Yeah, I was a bit late. One of my cousin and her kid showed up. I was playing with them.
Anything? Clem, we've got to hurry.
There.
Damn it! Go back! Go back!
Jane!
Jane, thank God.
Stop. Relax. You need to walk slowly. You'll be fine.
Hello, Eva. I am not furry.
I can't do this.
Good day. Oh, hello. Good day. First, see this. My favorite reel from. What is this reel? I am worried. I am worried. What is this reel? Where did furry come in from? Is this what I think it is? Yeah, of course this is what it is. Anywho, how are you? Hi, Night Furry. Oh god. Right. I see what happened. I am not furry. Yes. No. Still woke up. I'm like, whoa. Hey, yo, no. What the fuck? No. I ain't into furry stuff. That's just Twitter being Twitter. I mean, X being X. Sounds weird when you say that. That's Twitter being Twitter, right? Jesus Christ. First it's like here. I feel like my main account is like here. You might like gay stuff. I'm like, no, I'm straight. I'm sorry.
What's that?
My other account. You might like furry stuff. I'm like,
What's that
no,
about?
stop. Get away from me. Filth. No furry, thank you. I mean, if you're into it, good for you, right? But not me, please. Brother, it's such a cursed image in my mind. I swear to God, right? Twitter sucks ass. I was like, what?
Can't
What
concentrate
rubbish?
on this. It's better if we spread out. You two will be fine.
No, you don't understand. Just
You guys are fine. Just go.
I'll stay close and watch out for Rebecca.
Your choice.
Why is she so panicky? So basically, right, we were. we were like, okay, so I had the ability to teleport in the game, and I was teleporting across, and I was pretty sure I teleported across, but he still managed to catch me. So I was like, what the fuck is the point of a teleport then if he's still gonna catch me? So that's why I was like, what rubbish. So that's pretty much it, I
We'll
guess.
have to push through that cluster of walkers.
There's too many.
We'll make a cow catcher. Just... we need...
Okay, just tell me what to do.
There. That one looks light enough to carry. I'm gonna get on the far side of her. I need you to get her attention.
Okay.
Not gonna bite anybody now, are you? Follow me. Stay close. If you fall behind, I can't come back for you.
Okay. I DM'd you the videos. Watch him when you stress. Watch him when you wanna de-stress. Yes, not watch him when stressed. Like watch him when you wanna get stressed. My videos are not that stressful. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What the fuck? I know I'm being selfish, but still, can you please stream this game alternate days? Alternate days? Do that, right? Can do that. Also, you can check WOD, but again, that's up to you if you want to check WOD. WODs are not gonna be live, but alternate days, I can do alternate days, right? That's fine by me. Because there is a good chance that I might be able to finish this game off today. Because I should have been able to finish this game off today if I hadn't had my nephew and niece visiting me. My cousin's kids. So, I don't know. Would you call them nephews and niece? What's let you skip brain buffer? Hey. None of that pinpointing stuff. Anywho, right. My cousins popped up, so yeah. You need to keep. Are you okay?
Is everything alright?
No, I'm not alright.
Striker marketing. I
It'll
don't
be a lot
fucking
better
care.
once
Out of
we
my
get
way.
the others. I need to make sure everyone else made it out. Luke, Sarah, Kenny. God damn it. What if they aren't there?
If they aren't, nothing we can do about it.
Don't even say things like that.
Fine. Sorry.
Jesus. I don't even know if we're safe. What if the herd is still following us?
We're fine.
It's been quiet, but who knows? We gotta keep going.
Huh? Okay. Did I have
Let's
decisions to
just
make?
keep up a good pace.
I know. Just, I'm going as fast as I can.
Odd.
I know I should feel glad that we escaped, but I just can't stop
Alright,
thinking
sorry.
about the others.
Yeah. No missing
It
stream
was
yeah.
stupid.
What was?
Get to be
Escaping?
home till
Look, I know
14th.
we all
Let's
agreed to use the herd to get
go!
out, but maybe we should have been more patient. Come up with something better.
It worked.
If you can call that working, we could have, I don't know.
Jane saved us. I don't know how we would have gotten out without you.
You don't give yourself enough credit. I'm just saying that if people hadn't panicked, things might have turned out better.
Of course.
Yes.
We panicked. We were scared.
The plan was good. The execution was the messy part.
Give me a second. Let me read chat. I get to be home till 14th. Okay. What day is it today? Not me forgetting days. Oh, it's still 2nd. Okay. Oh, 14th. Right. Yeah, 15th by... TMI? Too much information. Am I doxing myself? Should I be worried? You know what? Yeah, never mind. I'm gonna keep that information to myself. Anyways, you're gonna know it eventually, right? It's fine. I think I might have a different outcome if I play this game now. Huh. Maybe, right? Very possibly. No missing stream. Yeah. Yahoo! Yahoo! Eat your last here. Eat your last here. Oh. Anywho, I know what that is, but I don't want to make my brain process that. DJ Khaled, another one. Look, you wanna see a whole run with bad decision. The most brutal ones, yes. Oh god, I know, right? I feel like I would unless
Sounds
until I
an awful
willingly do
lot
it, I
like
don't
you're
think I
saying
would
it was
be.
their fault.
What?
Pull it
no,
off.
no, that's not what I'm saying. Just
Just
I have to stop. I'm sorry. I don't want to slow us
speed
down.
run. Or
Can I
axe
just have a
Sarita.
minute?
That's the most
yeah. Take a
weirdest option ever. I'm like, why? I don't know why that option was even a thing, right?
Everyone
Axe
was
Sarita.
supposed to be here for this.
Is Alvin?
He's dead, is what he is. Thanks to that fucking madman back there.
Jane, do you know anything about...
No, I don't.
I'm just trying to help. Don't you dare side eye me.
What are you going to do with it?
What do you mean by that?
Sorry. Just making conversation. There was nothing.
No. What do you mean by that? Do with
Eat the
what?
unborn
My
baby.
baby?
I'm just looking at the worst case scenario. You and Clem won't be able to raise a baby by yourselves. Not out here. I just mean it's going to need food and, other stuff.
Yeah. And?
We can't just abandon it.
Hey, whoa! I never said you should abandon it. I just mean that sometimes you can't protect everyone you'd want to.
And you assume I won't be capable enough.
I mean, I know
Just because you're
Lee
some angry
couldn't do
loner
it.
who doesn't care about anyone
Poor
but
guy.
herself doesn't mean you know better than me.
Hey! I've seen it before.
Boy,
Back when
okay.
it started. Me
Punch
and my
baby.
sister-
Don't
Whoa!
give me those kind of
Die?
options, game.
I don't need your pity.
Hello, defective. What's
You
good?
don't. You don't have the right.
Jane!
I don't.
Shit, I didn't mean it.
What happened to me today? I feel very paranoid today. What happened? What happened? Like, you know what? I am more concerned about people's mental health as of lately, right? Because stuff. Anywho, what happened? I absolutely adore you guys because of this, right? You guys are mean to me, okay, in a good way. I don't really bother with it, okay? I'm happy with you guys just being in chat as well. But nonetheless, right, you're also caring to each other, right? That's so nice. I adore you guys for that, yes. I don't know. Okay, fine. I did read that, right? Anyway. Birth canal, more like birth. Oh my god, no. I feel very angry with everything. My bad. I'll go back home. My bad. I'll go. No, brother. You guys are mean to me. No one asked about this. I see how it is. Alright. Anyhow, right. I mean, it's. Usually, right, for me, not everything is about it. What the fuck? Okay, then I see how it is. Rude, but okay, I see how it is. Yeah, see, the thing is, right, what I feel like is, that is something very common, right? There are few days when even I get like annoyed with everything, but as far as I know and based on my situations, it's because I'm pissed at a particular situation. Okay, it's particular situation or particular people's particular person or a group of people, I don't know, right? Depends on with each person. You're probably pissed at them, but whatever happened, okay, you mentally have decided it's okay, but you haven't completely forgiven them or gotten over it, and that is just dragging you down for the day. It's something that usually you get over at the end of the day or end of a day or two, or usually food helps. For me, bully still, you'll feel better. Not worry. Fuck, why me? God damn it. Anywho, right, it's fine if you want to though. It works. It's fine. Like I can take some dishing out. That's okay. Take a nap. Take a nap will also work, right? Take a nap will also. But I feel like if the situation is something that's very, very complicated, punching back for his friend's group, you're not wrong, right? Like I don't want to talk to anyone and also want to shout aloud. Yeah, so the thing with that is, right, usually the more you don't feel like talking to someone, you definitely talk to someone at that point, because that person needs to be the right person. Okay, not saying like your life partner kind of thing, but the right person in the sense a person who would be willing to listen to you given the situation. You want to like sit, talk, rides help. Car rides, right? We're talking about car rides, yes. Late night rides, car rides, bike rides, vehicle rides. Yes. Sponge pillows. Drives. Yes. Yes. Spikes. Yes. Of course. That's what you guys meant. Yes. Not me going anywhere else with my mind. I'm sorry. That's what it is. Works for me. Best therapy. Oh yeah. Like long drives are good, right? Long drives at night at a place which is safe as well as empty. Amazing. Best feeling, right? I probably will sleep early. Like if you feel like that is something that would help you, definitely get some rest. Get to the next day much more easily. Sorry, my brain was somewhere else. My bad. But not helping. But is right? And nobody gonna have serious conversation over here, kind of vibe. But at least it came in at the end of it, or kind of. But yes, does it ever though? It helps Slay with his. Anyways, Slay when it targets someone, Slay. Then fuck the bot, please. Like, yeah, no, don't fuck the bot, no. Anywho, right, as I was saying, like, usually, right, robosexual. Is that even a word? I know robussy is a word that I made back when I was playing, what is that game? Robussy was a word that I made when I was playing, Atomic Heart, yes, sorry. I had to play the music in my mind to remember what game it was. Anywho, back to the game. You admitted to being robot. No.
She didn't mean it. Right?
Damn it.
The hell did I come back to? I come back, done it. Of course, nothing sauce. Hearts for Nora. No, Nora had the hearts for me.
Can't just sit here doing
I am not
nothing.
robosexual. What the fuck is a
They'll be
robosexual?
here soon.
There's a whole clip about it. Stop it! Stop
It has been so
saying
long.
my name. Why did you
I'm
say
starting to
robos?
worry no one else would make it.
Besides,
I don't know.
Now, hopefully, we can.
I
figure out
mean,
a plan.
How's
I would like to. Next question. Skip. Next question. I don't know the answer for that. Next question, please.
started yelling. Scary shit.
I know he probably didn't mean it, but it was scary.
Can't even justify yourself. I was just talking about the things I've said. That's all. Thanks, Aaron, for always making me laugh. I mean, you're welcome, but at my expense.
You think
But
he's gonna shoot
okay.
you?
The way he is right now, I don't know. Maybe. He's not acting rationally.
I should go talk to him. This is my fault.
Hey, you did what you thought was right. That's all.
I was
anyone can
checking
do in that
something for like
situation.
30 seconds. Yes. Welcome back to Robisi conversation. Yes. Happy to help. What do you mean worth it?
Wherever you are.
You're
please forgive
welcome.
me.
We are always here
I
for
can't be
you. If
alone
you need
again.
advice, you can DM me. If you guys want to chit chat, right?
Hi,
Definitely
Kenny.
DM each other. It's good.
You think I don't know what y'all are whispering about over there? What's wrong with Kenny? Why's Kenny acting that way? Do you think Kenny's okay? It's all I hear from anyone anymore.
I'm just worried about
Worried,
you.
huh? Well, that's nice of you, seeing as this was your fault in the first place.
There was nothing I could do.
Seeing how things turned out, I think I might have preferred you do nothing.
I tried to save her.
You think because you're a little girl, you can just get people killed and no one will care? That because you're sorry, it'll all magically go away?
Sorry, I'm getting yelled at. Let
That's
me
not
finish this.
how it works. Now for the last time, just get the fuck out of here and leave me alone.
I'm going crazy just sitting here not doing anything.
Just give it time, Mike. It's still early.
Clem, how'd it go?
Kenny's really mad at me.
Clem, you can't just expect him to bounce back. That
I wasn't
man's going
either.
through. At least you tried.
Still, doesn't exactly help us figure out what we're gonna do now. We got no food, no water.
Okay, these guys are gonna talk. Give me a second. Sure, okay, that's good. If anyone needs a laugh, turn on us. Oh god, no. Yes, racist subtitles. It is right. Thank for the luck, defective. Don't generate sadly for me. It won't? Alright. What happened? Turn it on and refresh. Was bronchi for me too yesterday. It's so random, right? The subtitles. It doesn't even make one proper sentence. I don't think it makes even a single proper sentence for me, does it?
It's getting damn cold, and we're losing daylight fast.
When the others get back, they'll know what to do. Luke will have a plan.
I thought Kenny would have a plan.
Mike, Bonnie.
Mike's got a point. You can't just keep sitting around waiting. Things are difficult enough right now, and soon
How
you'll
does
have
it
a baby on
struggle
your hands,
to
too.
generate
What,
subtitles?
suddenly you're pretending to be concerned?
Seeing you people floundering the minute things don't go according to plan has just got me on edge, alright?
We should go find Luke, Sarah, and Nick. If they're in trouble, we might be able to help them.
Clementine's right. After everything, after all this, if there's any chance
You're right.
they're
Yeah,
still
this
alive,
is.
we need to
I mean, dude,
I'll
it's
go.
not yet me talking at
Clem
this
can
point.
come
It's just
with
fucking up these guys' subtitles. Now imagine me talking on top of that. It's a mess. It's always a mess with me, right? There is no sense whatsoever.
Thank you.
Listen, Rebecca, if anything goes wrong here, you got something to protect yourself?
I've got this. You don't think I'd need to...
I don't know. You better keep that close. Come on, Clem.
Always a mess. Yes. I just cannot do this no more. That looks like a character that I know, but I don't know who. Weird. Yes, but true. Why does the light feel so less today on my face? Is it because I don't have background blur on?
Look,
Side.
I'm gonna level with you. You should
Okay.
know that finding your friends, that's a shot in the dark.
Might be right.
I don't know about that. We shouldn't give up before we've even looked.
Okay, but I wanted to talk to you, away from them. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't smart, but I just gotta warn you.
What is it?
That group is cracking. I've seen it before, and, well, a lot of times, it's better to be on your own.
Off seems better since
I know you
yesterday.
see what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
blur.
You don't want
Yeah.
to be here when they start turning on each other, turning on you,
You know, bad stuff happens to you when you're alone, too.
but your odds are better.
There's nobody to watch your back. And when something does happen, there's nobody there to help you.
How much help is Kenny gonna be? What he's going through? He's more of a liability than anything. And Rebecca's situation is not making things better back there. You get enough broken people together, and all you're gonna get are broken decisions.
Rebecca's just worried about her baby. I mean, wouldn't you be?
I wouldn't bring a kid into this world.
See, that is a
And like you
smart
said,
answer
it's
that
her
I
baby,
will be willing to
Not
accept.
mine or yours. For what it's worth, I like most of the people in your crew. But groups fall apart. People get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Then why did you bring me with you?
I'm just trying to give you the tools you need to make it. Like your jacket. It looks warm, but a walker will bite right through that. My sister Jamie had a good leather one. Wish I still had it. You could've.
Enough. Thanks for the luck, dude. Night Fury.
What happened to your sister?
We couldn't have.
Seems we always want to
What if
talk
she
about
pregnant
the
before
end,
the zombie?
don't we?
Yes, exactly. And it's Bill, right?
You know, being a big sister is, well,
She was pregnant before the zombie. And the father is Bill. Right. I have so many questions, right? I have so many questions to her loyalty. Anywho, I'd rather not go into that rabbit hole of loyalty and stuff.
funny.
Anyways.
it's
Poor
really
Alvin.
easy to be mean.
Oh?
You know, hide her toys, make fun of her bad haircut, give her the bad haircut on purpose. I mean, I did put the gum there. I figured I should get it out. I don't even know why.
Is that really what it's like having a sister?
No, it's not all bad. But
Yeah, I see.
what could I do? She thought I was her best friend. I couldn't go unpunished.
No, I'm not going to rabbit hole. Not that way.
Every summer we'd go to this amusement park in Virginia. But the best part wasn't the rides. It was that nobody knew us there. And
Anyways.
I'd pretend we weren't sisters. Just friends. All right.
I'm like, what is this doing this for? I know what it's like. Get them snacks
These
and
walkers
they
got some
eat
good
them
stuff.
all and say it's not nice. Ah, sister, you mean? Alright, I forgot you have a sister.
Yeah, we should check them out.
But you know why, right? Only because they're fresh. Take a look. Old walkers are a waste of time. They're holding credit cards and busted old pagers. But these ones weren't walkers all that long ago. They were survivors. They might have useful stuff. That one's not coming back. See what else he's got. I'll check this one.
Hey? Oh,
Hold on to him. Ammo's getting hard to come by, and things aren't going to get better.
sister is some sisters indeed, right? I have a brother. I haven't seen him in a while. I mean, I was supposed to. But my visa
Find anything?
said goodbye.
Driver's licenses, 2 of them.
Well, I guess some people just can't leave the past behind.
In case, you know, they don't want to go through all the making driver license and stuff again.
Smart haircut.
Thanks.
So, has your crew always been so dysfunctional? You fit in
I
there,
don't know how it's supposed to.
but you weren't like them. It makes me wonder.
I was with a different group before. That one worked better, I think. That was when I got my hair cut like this.
Lee,
That's
Lee,
it.
Lee. Good man.
A nail file. These things are great. Sharpen a blade, strike a flint.
I mean, I didn't
Jamie
ditch my
always had
car.
one in her purse. It jabbed my hand when I went reaching in.
Pockets. Yeah, true. I mean, I know, right? You never know, right? Credit cards are actually useful. You can use it to open doors if you're smart enough.
Can never be too sure with these things. Here, give me a hand.
He called. He has no idea where my license is. Why do you don't have any idea where your license is?
These glasses, they're Sarah's.
Looks like your friend didn't make it. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
All we know is that she was here. It could be a good sign.
Don't go getting your hopes up. Look, Clem, I know what you want me to say, but...
Sarah! God damn it!
Shit! Okay, come on. We gotta find a way in. Looks like there's an opening over there.
Haven't used it. Yeah, no buts. And no buts.
Oh
Okay, then.
no.
I'd use it, not like I need to swipe it to drive. Oh yeah, true. No, Nick!
It's
No!
Look, he's your friend. You should do this.
What weapon do I have?
I'm sorry, Nick.
Ooh, I have an axe. One shot. End it. Anyway, no? You're a friend, so you should do this. Not really, right? Rather do it myself. people do some sick stuff or else.
It's all right. It's
So
done.
it's better to just end it quickly.
If it comes to it, if Luke or Sarah or anybody needs to be put down, you gotta be ready for it. No hesitation. You know that, right?
It never gets any easier, does it?
I ain't
Hasn't for
bonking
me.
my friend, especially the racks. Unless and until there is zombies.
That hatchet of yours
No.
seems to get stuck pretty easily. It's gonna get you killed. Here, use this. Very effective. We can do this.
Ice pick. I would rather ignore. So rude, ignoring. You know what? Give me a second. Be right back. Hello. It is I. There stream no Discord light today. It was there. It just fell off. Did I didn't just break. I destroyed it. I broke it. Oh yeah, Discord light is not working, and this light I just broke it. And I was trying to go out. What the fuck? Why? It was unintentional. See? The wire off. It's not intentional. I was walking away. I was having a nose block, so I wanted to clear my nose. So yeah, it was blocking.
They don't sound too good. Clock is ticking.
I have electrical to fix it, yes.
How do we find them? Start by getting a better look.
I will fix it, of course.
How about you get the close one, and I'll hop the fence to get the other. Go for it.
Okay.
Can't help you if you. I can't help you if you.
Dome him one
Nice
more.
work. You know what you're doing. Now watch this.
Smolder gun. Soldier gun.
Got a nice
Yes.
little addition to your arsenal.
Solder gun, yes. Soldering gun. I don't have a soldering gun, right? I had it, but I gave it to one of my friend and he still has it. I had to go ask him again to send it to me.
Put a knife
Soldier
in the back of its
gun.
head when it's down. Alright.
I'm gonna fix it somehow, it's fine. Soldier boy! Oh no 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 no.
There's too many.
We're not getting in while they're still hanging out over there. Maybe we can get them to move. Let's see if we can find anything over there. It's gonna take some work to get over there.
Right, there you go. Give me a paragraph in English so I can rewrite it in cursive. Currently I have to learn cursive. Okay, you want a paragraph? I have a paragraph for you. You want to write in cursive, right? I have a paragraph for you. Yeah, I'll send it in chat. I mean, I wonder, right? I wonder. Write all the subtitles. No! That would be the most meshed stuff to ever write, so no. There you go. There you go. I don't know, right? I don't know who will get this reference. Character limit reached of 50. No. Wait. Till where it is, have no problem sleeping. Okay. No problem sleeping. Where is it? Sleeping. There you go. There you go. There you go. Yes. A paragraph for to write. You're welcome. I judge your reference, of course. I don't know, right? The moment she said paragraph, the thing that popped up is no. Kira Yoshikage, Sanju Sansai. Nendre, no, Nendre Sanju Sansai. Oh, whatever. Anyways.
I'm not.
You did the knee thing. Nice trick, huh?
Damn it! Fuck!
Damn it! Fuck! Why? There you go. Yeah, obviously weeb stuff.
That's a lot of walkers.
The non-weeb who doesn't understand it but still comes to stream. Much respect.
And what gets the
Good
interest
job.
of the dead?
I like how everyone will like JoJo reference instantly.
How do we get in?
Everyone like JoJo.
Make enough noise on this side. We can lure those walkers over here. Then we might just be able to go through that other.
Pause! Why is there Spider-Man over there? Don't tell me nobody saw Spider-Man over there. Huh? Come on, please show me that.
Trailer and get your.
There is Spider-Man on the left side.
What do you think of that? I mean, I'm just making it up as I go along.
If you think that's best, I'm with you.
Good. What's
See,
going to
look at
grab
that!
their
Look at that!
attention?
Look at that dude in the back! On the left side of the wall. Look at this! Oh, is that a helmet? Ah, man, I thought that was Spider-Man. Hey, come on, dude. That did look like Spider-Man from this angle. And I'm like, what is Spider-Man doing? I will learn references before I can actually watch.
What are you thinking?
Yes. JoJo reference is meant to be learnt.
We should search him. Not all of them are winners.
Right. Sounds sus. Anyways, bro got
Yeah,
baited.
it does look pretty strong.
I'd make a paragraph if I wasn't playing. Exactly, right. Is it? Okay then. Wouldn't work. Okay.
Hey, just calm down.
No keys, I see.
Damn it, don't do this.
That's good, but we need to keep it going somehow.
Okay. How many episodes in a JoJo? 6 seasons. I think there's a total of 150 something episodes. Yes, a lot. The answer is a lot. You're welcome.
We can get around this way, but if we don't get those walkers to move, we're not getting very far.
Is there nothing in here? No, wait.
Come on.
And these people are so dumb, right? Totally doesn't seem much. It is not much.
What do you want me to do?
Huh? Oh, I also stabbed.
We are gonna.
What do I do?
Damn it, don't do this.
I can
Let's find a
pause.
way to keep
Okay.
it on.
Alt tab. Per season is an attempt. Yes. I would say it would be a difficult run to watch all of those for sure.
Not like this. You can't do this.
What are you thinking?
Sure.
If we lean him on the horn, it'll keep honking and draw the walkers.
Just like moths to a flame. Give me a hand.
He's alive, isn't he? I think I'll be fine in a day or two. I'll be completely fine with the cough. So rude. Look, it's Michael Jackson.
Working!
It is a thriller. Thriller night. Wow.
Come on!
Thriller. Anyhow. Hey yo, baby girl, what's up? Hey yo, baby girl, what's up? Oh.
Come on.
What?
Crap. We gotta move it.
What happened to the dude? Where did he go? He ain't getting well.
Then
Not
try
with that
something
choice.
else. You're gonna need to use more force than that. Put some muscle into it. I'll hold them off. Just get us in there. Hurry!
Okay.
Help me block this. Hurry!
I kinda knew this was gonna be the one.
Sarah, please. Who's out there?
Luke!
Clem? Oh, thank God. Did Nick find you? He made a run for it. Looking for help.
I
I
saw,
saw him
outside.
outside.
Look.
He's gone.
He was out there, but we took care of him. You know.
Fuck.
Fuck.
When I heard y'all banging through the door,
Luke, where's Sarah?
I don't know what to do about her.
What's the matter?
Her dad
Yeah,
died,
help.
right? Her dad is a gone. No, her dad is a gone.
Sarah, look.
What is wrong with my Wi-Fi? Oh, right.
See, it's just like I told you. They're okay. Sarah, come on. We have to go now.
What's she doing? Can you get up?
I don't know what to do.
It's supposed to
I
get
can't
my-
snap her out of it.
I need
I
to.
tried to carry her,
I
but
don't-
I
Oh no,
guess
she
Carver
got bit. I
messed
don't
me
think
up
she
pretty
got
good.
bit. I think she's just panicky.
it's just after
She has
Carlos just
anxiety, I
lost it,
think. I don't
started
know.
running
Panic
through the
attack or
woods.
anxiety. Either one of
Like
the
I
two.
chased her for I don't know how long, and then, well, she saw this mobile home, made a beeline right for her. I'm just glad y'all are here.
We're not out of the woods yet.
What are we gonna do about her?
Relatable. Happens, right?
We gotta do something.
Maybe she'll listen to me.
Maybe.
Listen, they're gonna tear this place open pretty soon. We can't stay. So we gotta get her
Right,
up,
I
or
intentionally
we
to
gotta...
con me when this is too much work.
Well, I've
That
been
I
trying.
intentionally to con.
Been trying for hours.
Why you do
I can
that?
barely get her to look.
Why would you do that?
Clem?
Unbelievable. Goody two shoes. Unbelievable. Why would you get yourself into much trouble?
Me.
Why you like to play with the fire? Why you danger?
Hi.
Stress.
No!
Shit.
Maybe it seems like you're all alone right now, but you're not. Yes, I am. But what about Luke and Jane and me? We came here because of you. All of us in the group.
I like fire
We're
very
your
hard.
family now.
It's a fucking hottest pepper in the world, and it's like easy. Did you just say I like fire?
We're surrounded.
Very hot. Interesting.
What?
Very interesting.
What about the skylight?
Burns.
All we got.
Clem, there's no time.
Clem. Listen, Jane might be right.
When everything started, I met my friend Lee. He tried to help me find my parents. He protected me more than anyone else.
She
in
likes
my
friends
whole
a lot,
life.
so gotta make sure.
He died
Friends
to
is the
keep me
best
safe.
option.
I was so scared. But you're still here. Because he taught me to be strong, even when I'm scared. Because he wanted me to live.
I don't need everything you like.
And your
What do
dad
you mean?
protected you because he wanted you to live.
I
He
mean,
would still want
I
that.
like spicy. I don't like too spicy stuff either. Understandable. Understandable. Oh my god, look at the broken glasses.
Get to the skylight, now!
Come on, I'll boost you.
What's going on back there?
My ribs. We're gonna need something to stand on.
Luke, get over here. Help me hold this.
Okay, I need
Clem,
to.
see what you can find.
Can we use this?
It's not big enough.
The fridge.
Forget it. That thing ain't budging. Find something else.
Can we use that?
Yeah, that would work.
What? Oh, shit.
That's what she said? Interesting things that she's telling you. You need to be careful, I guess.
On three. 1,
Okay.
2, 3.
I'm pressing the key, please.
Clem! Clem, help her! Help Jane!
Okay, go, go. Keep pushing. Go.
Oh, I need Jane to be safe. She's one of the better characters. Who is normal for once.
It's through.
Luke, you first. We need you up top.
Okay, come on!
Clem,
Sarah, we have to go. Are you listening?
Good girl.
Do it.
You
now,
can do it.
Clementine. If she doesn't want to go, you can't make her. Don't let her take you down too. Not again.
I can't. Daddy! Don't make me leave you. Come on. Dying like this is stupid.
You can't save her, Clem. We have to go. Believe me, I know about this.
Hurry up!
Oh, move!
Would she rather die?
Grab her. Ugh.
I'm
go.
sorry.
Sarah.
It ain't
Come
big
on.
enough. Wait a minute. If that's what she said, I'm sorry for her, I guess. I don't know. Poor girl. But it is what it is, eh? Hey, I'm sorry for the dude, right? God damn it. Poor guy. To be clear, which place? Cough syrup.
Okay. Look, I hate to ask this, but are we there yet?
We're not far.
Couldn't be me, of course. Don't let me down.
Look, Sarah, you can get through this. We both will. But I'm not okay.
You are
Just
fine.
try. Can you do that?
She just needs a little time, Clem. Leave her be for a bit.
You got. Man,
I don't know about this.
that slap was a bit personal, but you
The
know,
way
the
she
situation
is,
was.
she's gonna cause problems.
What happened in there? When we went in there, you were ready to help, but then something changed.
Look, I'd seen that kind of thing before. I just didn't want to stick around for the bitter end. Sorry, I don't mean to sound harsh. It's just the way things are.
It's okay. I get it. Things aren't always simple.
And just because you got her out of there today,
I mean,
doesn't mean you
yes,
saved
but
her.
also,
Trust
I'd
me.
like to. I prefer not to
I
raise my
tried to
hands on
save
people.
Jamie too,
I
but she
just don't.
gave up.
What happened? This guy looks like he's about to complain.
I can't believe it.
What?
As soon as
Nick?
you guys said go, I was the first one up on the roof. Like I had already made up my mind.
Luke, you can't let it eat away at you.
Why are you worried about it? It's fine. Your rib is gone, so get it fixed first.
Well, I can't forget it.
I dragged my sister across 4 states, and every morning she'd say she wasn't getting up. So I'd convince her, or push her, or goddamn carry her if I had to.
Nice. He
Until this
overthunk.
time,
He overthunk her.
walkers cornered us.
No
Forced
overthinking,
us
it
up
not
to the
good.
roof.
It
and when
caused
they
troubles.
kept coming, I
When they kept
couldn't
coming.
make her jump. Couldn't throw her. So I tried something else. I told her she could have what she wanted. And I left her there. Jumped to the next building over by myself.
You left your sister?
Jane, I'm really sorry.
It's a hard decision, right? She had to make it.
It killed me for a long time. But I finally realized that I'd put her on a forced march through hell, when all she really wanted was for me to let her go. Sarah was that way too.
Jane?
No regard for her own safety, or ours.
I hope I did the right thing.
I think you did.
Come on, let's get back to your friends.
Eat my sis to the zombies. No, eat her across. Ah, yes, finally some life in her. Yeah, some life at least. Sarah is at least alive, so that's good. For a start. For a start, she's alive, so progress.
Son of a bitch. You found him.
Yeah, I'm a little amazed myself, to tell you the truth. If it weren't for Clem and Jane, well, I don't know what would have happened.
Sarah, how you doing, hon?
Why is she shivering?
That's okay, sweetie. Whenever you're ready. I'm just glad you're here. But wait. Where's Nick?
Nick didn't make it.
Rebecca, how about we go for a walk for a minute?
Maybe? Warning? Ah, yes. Not
Let's
yet.
just give him some
This
space.
season for
I
sure.
have something I
mean,
need
this
to talk to you about, too.
episode for sure. I know that for a fact. No. I mean, that
I ain't
amount
gonna
of stress
sugarcoat
on the
this.
mother is not going to
That
be good
baby's
for the
coming
baby.
even faster than Rebecca's letting on. But I was hoping you might know. Does Luke know anything about babies? Has he, I don't know, mentioned Carlos teaching him anything?
Kenny had a family. He could help. Where
Where's
is
Kenny?
he?
What?
He went in there after you left. Said he needed a minute by himself.
No, he wouldn't have done
Ain't seen
something
him
stupid, would he?
since. I don't think he's doing well.
Yeah, I think I'm doing a mistake, but okay.
I'll go in
I
there.
know his
Thank
knowledge
you, Clem.
about
I
babies
really
are
do
common.
think that might be best.
I don't think birthing a baby's knowledge is normal. Common, I mean, my bad. I'm pretty sure it's not. It's gonna be difficult for sure. And I don't know, to start with. I mean, I know weird things, but I don't know. It's not that simple, okay? I know that, but I know it's not that simple. At least I know that. Watch 3 Idiots. Simple. Okay then. Why is that blood over there?
I wanted to check on you. Make sure you're okay.
You know what it feels like to get beaten almost to death? Peaceful. It feels peaceful.
Push
It was
baby
like I
cut
was
card,
floating
make sure
away,
it's correct.
watching
Okay,
the whole
then.
thing happen to me.
Interesting.
And then I woke up again, and nothing's changed. I'm still taking a beating. Every day. Duck, Katja, Sarita. No peace. No rest. The punches just keep coming. Why the hell couldn't Carver have just finished me off? Obviously, I ain't helping anyone by being here.
That's not true. You help me all the time. I need you.
I've seen you take care of yourself more than any 3 adults put together.
Hello,
But,
ma.
thanks for saying that.
Simple. I don't think it's that simple, right? There are a lot of sanitary issues in there involved, okay?
Now, don't worry yourself about this. It's nothing.
I
Hadn't
would
killed
like
me
to
yet
think that there
anyway.
needs to be a lot more than just that simple.
Maybe one of the others can look at it for you.
Oh, shit. Does that mean what I think it does? What are we supposed to do?
We should see what's going on.
Talking about the knowledge to birth one. Yes! I don't think it's like the meme where the girl starts
you okay?
shooting the
How
babies
does
and
it
the
feel?
doctor is just hitting it in
It
the...
feels wet. That's
No,
how it
Fez, it's just a
feels.
meme,
What's
okay?
going on?
It kind of
Rebecca's
stuck to
water
my head
broke.
the moment I heard that.
Oh, Christ.
We should... I don't know what we should do.
Oh, fuck.
That means the baby's coming, right?
Kenny, thank God. I think the baby's coming. What do we do?
All right. Give me a second.
No way can Rebecca trap her like this.
He's
Shut
right.
up, Luke.
She's gonna make a lot of noise. They'll be able to smell her, too.
What should we do first, Kenny?
Kenny, come on, you gotta focus.
They are down, obviously.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry. Clean water for one thing. And blankets.
And we gotta get out of this
Not keep
damn
it
cold,
alive
too.
after.
That map shows
Okay,
a couple
then.
of buildings nearby. Maybe one
Baby
of
is
them could do the
burning.
trick.
The whole process, that's the most worst lie I've ever heard,
Museum
okay?
seems
I
like
only
a
know
really
the
good
knowledge
start.
of birthing
I'll
and not
go.
keeping it
Good
alive
idea.
after. What?
Think you could go with her?
Sure thing.
I'll check the building by the river.
Okay, then.
It's like saying, you know what? This would sound so crude, right? You could just slash, pull it out, done. Baby is out. I don't know about the rest of the process. That's bullshit. No way. C-section cutting over there for some reason. Okay.
Kenny, you stick with Rebecca, and I will check the perimeter for walkers.
In afterbirth care, is it a
Sarah?
single time? I know exactly what I mean.
Just
That's
stay
the
here
whole
with
point.
Rebecca and Kenny, okay?
Clem... I know it must have been hard, but thank you for talking to Kenny. I'd love for you to give me and Mike a hand looking at the museum, but I was thinking, how do we know Jane ain't just gonna take off? Maybe you should go with her. Make sure she comes back.
What do you mean by that?
You know, she doesn't seem to like being around people much. And she volunteered to head off awful fast. I guess it could be nothing.
I trust Jane.
Yeah. I mean, I would have never made it back without her.
Just something to think about.
Okay. Natural birth, best option. No C-section is government will kill
Okay,
both.
we're looking for
Exactly,
warm
right.
blankets, clean
Natural
water,
birth, best option,
disinfectant.
yes.
That all sound right?
Don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine.
I want to check on Sarah. I'll help everyone else too.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, sure. All right, everyone, you know what to do. Let's be fast, and let's be careful.
Hey, Sarah. You know, Rebecca's starting. They were going to leave me, weren't they? Of course not. Luke tried really hard to get you to come with him. How come you didn't leave me?
Because we're friends.
Because we're friends. I could never be that.
Are they gonna
good of a
stop
friend.
the spawn from
I
trying?
just want my
I
dad.
know, right? I know,
I
right?
know.
I don't know. See, there's some very bad decisions made.
When
and
he gets
it's
here,
really being
we
shown
should all
over
go
here.
back to the cabin. We're safe there.
Huh?
Sarah?
Hey, I think that's all she can take for now. She'll be all right.
The others could really use a hand scout for supplies.
I'll see if Mike and Bonnie need any help.
Good. Don't be too long if you can help it.
Maybe I should have gone with Jane. Bad decision 9 months ago. Pretty sure, right? That's pretty much
I
what
guess
it
that's
is.
the place there.
Fuck. It's a wreck.
You ain't even been inside yet.
Just look at it. Glass all blown out, walkers hanging around.
Well, no way to find out until we go and check it out for ourselves.
Maybe we can still find something.
That needs to be
Yeah,
put to sleep
maybe.
or given work. I know, right? I know. See, the thing
Sorry.
is,
I
right?
just really want to stick
I
with
feel
the
like
gun
whenever it
without-
comes to overthinking,
It's
the
been
best
hard
solution
so
is
far.
keep yourself busy.
How about you make it
It
up
works
to
the
us
best,
by
especially
helping
when
out
you
with
have,
those
like,
walkers up there.
Something
Yeah.
already occupying your mind, it's much easier.
Jane showed me a good way to attack them. If you take out a knee, they always fall. And then you can stab them in the back of the neck.
A good smack to the head's always done fine for me.
Exactly. See, this is much smarter.
Crap!
Infantry.
So
Infantry?
the knee is about halfway down the leg.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. then.
Let's do this before more of them show up.
The slap, the bit slap, yes, exactly.
Watch out for the broken glass. It's all over.
Okay.
Somebody's already been through here. Guess that's not a surprise. Still, might be something worthwhile left. Let's check it out.
We need to look fast so we can get back to the others.
Let's just take a sweep. I really don't want to go back empty-handed.
Yes.
Keep
Well, you
one eye
could
on the
use-
woods while we're in here. I don't want nothing sneaking up on us.
I'll watch this side, you watch the other.
Deal.
You could use cannons, right? Don't you
Do
think
you
it's a
think
good
these
idea?
work?
Nah, they're just for show. Be handy, though.
Also really loud.
Good point.
I mean, let's be honest, right? If you think about it, you could actually use it. All winding apart.
You think maybe they say that stuff about water and blankets just to get people out of the way?
Hey, look at this. An old coat.
Nice. Good find, Clem. You should hang on to that. It's gonna get a lot colder before it starts getting warmer. And someone could use it.
Kenny said we need blankets. It's not really a blanket, but
But it should do the trick. Good
Good
call.
call.
I guess you've
Cannon
already
great
got
to
that
keep
old
baby
coat I
safe.
gave you.
Cannons
I
the
feel
baby
so
off.
bad.
No!
about
Don't do it.
Everything that happened. Hopefully you won't always think of me like that. Not that I blame you if you did. I haven't always used the best judgment.
it seems like you're with us now. That's what matters most.
Clem found a jacket.
That's great, but isn't Gray the,
Light the baby? No!
we can't put Rebecca in a Confederate coat.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Guess it's better than nothing, though.
It's a light. I mean,
Lee
I
would
see
have
how you
loved
think.
this place.
No,
There sure been
no
some
harming,
animals through
baby.
here.
No. Hello,
That's what
Slay.
you
What's
said.
good? How are you, my friend? What are you doing today? What is your day like today, my friend? Hello. You being a pessimist.
Any luck?
No, not so much. Unless you want some broken glass.
I mean, speaking of pessimist, where is Avinish? He doesn't even show up to stream anymore. Such a rude boy. Not an Avi.
I tell you.
My day today, my friend.
Souvenirs, huh?
Oh, thanks so much for the follow, Epitome. Epitome, thanks so much for the follow.
Why would I
So
want
what
a
is this?
keychain?
Him being a
I don't
pessimist.
even have any keys.
Hold
Good
up,
point.
child. Hold up. I'm trying to read chat over here. My day today, my friend was okay. My day today, my friend was tiring. My day today, my friend, was tiring. I had tuitions. I was searching colleges. Understandable. That was a roller coaster. It took me a second to get through it. God damn. Okay. Yeah, that's cool, dude. That's fine. You look for good colleges. There are a few really good ones out of your state as well. You might want to check them out as well. Check it out. No kill equals butt getting a butt. Getting a stroke. Yes, of course. No stroking with that. Anyways, punctuations was missing, I guess. Yeah. But love Slay. I know, right? The moment Slay pops in, it's like, wow. Let me put some butt stuff here. Anywho, thank you for the follow, Epitome. Just making sure I do say that. No stroking, what? No. No, please, no. Okay. Lee said hi, but Leah didn't. Damn. Leah too cool for you now. I don't know. Damn. Talk about being sick. Damn, it's high from all my personalities. Ah, yes. The 9 personalities, like the 9 cat life.
Empty.
MD. What is? Did he not just check this?
Nothing but junk in there. Trust me.
We could take the whole cardboard box though. What do you mean? Oh wait. Why is this child so strong?
Over here.
Ah yes, baby in a box. Of course, -1 HP every time we
Water,
cough.
bottled and clean.
I
It's
know,
just what
sometimes
we
it
need.
might be true, right? Because I'm getting a bad headache because of it.
It's
It'd be
locked.
minus.
You
Ah
want to
yes.
kick it down?
That'd make an awful lot of noise.
Yeah, maybe. You know, if somebody was small enough, they could maybe squeeze through that gap there.
I could try to pry it open some more, but I don't know if that'll help much.
All right. I'll go.
Thanks, Clem.
Just open the door from the other side. Mike will carry those things out. Might be a bit heavy for you.
But she's so mad, right? I don't get it. Hulk kid. I know. Power nap, not
I'm
power.
stuck.
Okay, maybe I push from...
Power enough, okay.
Well,
That was fucked. Too
that
much.
happened.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm so sorry about that, Clementine. We should have been more careful.
It's alright. Don't blame it. That was
At
my
least now we
decision.
got something to bring back.
I'll keep checking the other room.
Scabby, yes. That's a
Look at
kid,
this.
right? A kid going inside over there is such a bad decision. I don't know why they still went with it. God damn, but it's fine. No shot, right? They expect a kid to pick this up. No, it's like not.
I got this.
They, 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 why she get sad? No way she's gonna carry that anyways. There's a walkie over there. They could have picked the walkie up.
That looks pretty heavy.
That's all right. I know it looks like a lot, but we could all go through this pretty quick. Carver was crazy, but at least his shelves were always full. We're gonna have to be conservative as hell.
We'll make a plan. Everyone will have enough.
I hope so. That baby's gonna be hard on
Oh,
everyone.
hello, Epitome.
especially
Hello,
Rebecca.
hello.
And between you and
It doesn't bite.
she's not looking too good.
You dare question my threateningness? Anyways, yeah. No, I don't bite. I am very calm. I am chilling. Yes, thank you. Hello, welcome to stream, Epitome. Hello, hello. I can't even. Rex Nailenek. Why? Why are you even attempting that? But sure. Sure. We'll go with that. I mean, but the thing is, right, usually risks are rewarding. So that's the whole point of taking a risk. Why would you not take a
Come
risk
on,
if it is
stay
reward worthy? See, I have a screw in case I have a zombie
Just
that I need
walked
to
on in like it owned the place.
poke.
Figure it'd make a nice meal.
We can eat raccoon?
I'd eat the shit out of that raccoon.
Not
Not
what I
like-
wanted to
I mean,
hear.
just
Very
that I'd be
sus.
really happy to eat that raccoon. I am
Not like, I
starving.
mean, oh god,
Play
oh
with
god.
Shoot! Don't let it get away!
Where is it?
I think it went over there.
There he is.
He's coming your way. Block him. Oh, shit! Shoot! Dang it!
No.
Not with the walkers out there.
Oh. Maybe not at all. Okay. Why does Fairy
I'm
go
even
through?
hungrier than I was before.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
How'd I get to a place where I'm sad I'm not eating raccoon?
Well,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sort
very
of glad
nice.
it got away.
I
We got a
shall
family.
clip. No babies.
Yeah, me too.
Come on,
Cause
let's just get this back to Rebecca and the others.
that line was so wild,
We
right?
don't have much time to waste.
God damn it. Anywho, you know what it is.
I'm not supposed to be in labor yet, Kenny. What if something's wrong?
Nothing's wrong. Babies know how to be born.
How long did your son take?
How you doing, Beck?
I'm doing bad.
Okay. I'm okay. How did you guys make out?
Museums are
Okay,
bust.
The Walking Dead.
All
is it?
glass
Yeah.
walls shattered.
Walking Dead
Impossible.
season 2. Season 1 we finished like a while back before I went to Delhi.
And it was
So,
picked over
yeah.
pretty good. Lots of folks probably been there before us.
We found some water, though.
Oh, that's good. Nice work.
Good.
Right.
Good. We save all of that for Rebecca. Anybody else gets a thirst, you can go to the river.
Okay. Fine. The child does matter. Of course. Where's the other girl? She gone? Yeah, I think she's gone, isn't she? Babies know how to be born. I am a professional baby. I watch her. Yes. I'm
Glad you made it
surprised
back
that
safe.
those two paragraphs fit in one
How are you
page.
feeling?
Damn.
Scared.
Yes.
And it hurts.
Ah. Right.
I wish Alvin was here.
Epitome, meet Donut, meet Epitome. Say hello. Think he did was for you and the baby.
Alvin was a good man. He was nice to
He
me.
wasn't, but I'm
and
gonna say
always
it.
looked out for everyone.
I
He
slay.
had one of the
I
biggest
am an
hearts of
expert,
anybody I've ever
experienced
met.
baby.
I should have told him
Okay
that more
then.
often.
Okay then.
I know it's a waste of time, but I can't stop thinking about things I should have said to him.
I'm sorry. I'm so tempted to watch this clip, right? I'm sorry. Man, that clip was. I just wanna watch it. I just wanna watch it once because I was busy reacting. I want to see the reaction that these two gave. So good. Oh, come on, why are you buffering on me? Oh boy. Anyways, fun. Very fun. Ah, damn. God damn it. Resume. Thank you.
Things I should have
Just
talked to him
once. Just
about.
once. Damn it. It is the record. I was never scared.
How am
You're
I
going
ever
to
gonna
be a
do
good
this
mom.
without him?
You're going to be a good mom.
We sure have come a long way since we first met, huh?
You are a bitch to me from the beginning. That is not my fault, lady.
Glad
Please.
you'll be there to watch out for this baby.
Okay.
Oh shit.
I got this. I'm worried that we ain't seen Jane in a while. Go check on her, would you?
Yeah, go on ahead. I'll be fine.
Jane might have gone. Feel like I made a mistake, but it's fine. What's the child doing? Must check on the child. Why is she so mad? Always. Fallen but never forsaken. Why she got the attitude face? Mother need patience. Indeed, mother does needs patience. When I wake up is same. Yes, of course. Maybe I should have checked on Jane, right? It's just mad, like, why am I up kind of expression?
Hey, Sarah.
What the fuck, child? Trying to talk to you. You're supposed to be friend. Maybe I should have talked to everyone, right?
Jane?
If something is to happen, it's gonna happen anyways. I don't have to do anything about it. It's gonna happen, right?
Hey, Clementine, up here.
Oh lord. See? Good thing I trusted.
Oh, hey. Museum was a bust, huh?
On water.
We found water. A lot of it.
Well, that's something at least. Check this out. This gate's still locked, which means that hopefully no one's gotten to whatever was locked in there in the first place. I've been trying to get it open, but it's locked pretty tight. Can't see what's inside.
Do you think you can pick the lock?
I
Good.
should be able to figure something out.
Good
Maybe
answer,
this'll work.
expression.
The nail file?
Versatility is not overrated. You know, it wouldn't hurt to try a heavier hand with this thing. See if you can find something bigger. We might need to bust the mechanism.
Do any of you know how to lockpick? Again, I'm asking you in terms of safety way, not in the sense of I can lockpick the car. No,
There
not
were
those
more
kind of
cannons
things. Right?
in the museum.
If you get locked in a
They're
place,
just for show.
do you know how to
They fill with cement,
lockpick,
so
or
you're
do you at
safe.
least know the mechanism of a lockpick to get out of that situation? Or are you gonna be like, I know what, brute force this? Just a question. I felt like, should be something that you know. You never know when it might be useful, when it might not be useful. But information is
anything?
information.
No, not even
Not even
trash.
trash. Oh, wait, I don't. I mean, I know I'm not there. What? Okay. Civil War. Civil War. Oh. Nothing? Interesting.
There's some buildings across the river. I think I can see a church.
The nearest river crossing is miles up. Rebecca wouldn't make it in her condition. Keep it in mind, though.
Jane, there's someone coming toward us.
Okay. Pink sky.
Shit. He's coming this way. And who knows if he has friends nearby. I don't like having some stranger sneaking around.
Can we fight him?
Could be too risky. I didn't get a good look at him. But we should scope him out and see what he's up to. I don't like having some stranger sneaking around so close to the others. We've got enough on our plates with a baby coming. Last thing we need is someone telling their friends about the new easy targets in the neighborhood.
I'll distract him, so you can sneak up behind him.
No, maybe I should have talked to him.
Shit. Hide now.
Be calm, assuming no one pilfered it. I would think it's already pilfered, right, at this state. This time.
Hey. I'm just a kid. Please, don't hurt me. Do you understand me?
Yes. I'm Arvo. I'm going to go. I don't want to shoot. I don't want to shoot anyone. Especially маленькая девочка. Little girl.
You don't have to shoot anyone. Just put the gun down.
Back up. Put the bag down. Clem, make sure he doesn't have any other weapons in there.
Okay. Sorry. Serious situation. I'm completely lost in the thought process.
No, I have no more guns. I swear to you.
We just need to make sure you're not a threat. Anything? Whoa. That's a serious stash of meds.
No. Take whatever you want, but don't take the medicine. It's for my sister. My older sister, she's sick. The pain makes her cry and that makes those things come. Please.
Is it just you and your sister?
No. I have many friends. In the woods.
Sister or not, we could really use that stuff.
No. You are not nice people. You have already left me defenseless, and now you take my sister's medicine? You are worried.
Hey, we've got people who are suffering, who need this medicine.
Well,
Luke's
hello.
still a wreck after Carver's.
Welcome back, Slade.
Kenny's
Sorry.
a mess. Rebecca's in pain.
Give me a sec, no?
Look at all of it. Clementine, we need
People
that
are
stuff.
suffering just as much as yours. You are not special. Clementine, yes, you must...
You're not taking them.
I'm not robbing anybody. Just let him go.
Боже, thank you, Clementine. Thank you. No, what are you doing? You don't have to do this. Just let me go.
Jane, don't do it.
Don't you ever come around here again. I don't care if you do have some sick sister.
Okay,
The next time
what
I
you
see
doing?
you,
I know,
you won't
right?
just be walking away. Go.
Well, at least you got a new gun. Okay. Welcome back. My son has decided to make my suitcase his bed. Doesn't he always? Hello, donut. Hello. Why not share? What, the donut? Pause. Anyways. Hi, Slay. How are you? Very nice. Imagine an 8-year-old leading a group. Such a boss. I mean, she is. It's 11, but she is, right? All good, yet you tell. Alright, then I'm doing bad, sadly. You know, you can always talk to Slay as well, Donut. You know, see, just if usually venting out helps a lot. You should talk to somebody, right? You'll get it out of your system. You'll be able to get some rest.
Can't believe I've gotten into this mess. Threatening some stupid kid?
We should go get everyone else.
Yeah.
Get out of your system. Yes, exactly right.
Go get the others.
Huh? But we never ask you. Don't ask me. Wasn't she 8 when she met her? 3 years have passed. No, what? And why? What did you do all of today? Who? Talk to Leah? Leah so much better at this stuff. I'm not. True. Other than the power nap. A power nap was supposed to be power nap, okay? I didn't my cousins come over. I got late. I'm sorry. Instead of saying it'll be fine. Yeah, no. That's bad line, mate. It's bad line. Never go with it'll be fine. It will be fine. But that is true. It will be fine. But that's not something that, people that'll not help people get through. Asking you still, or me. I did tell you what I just did, what? I don't butt up, huh? I just butt up saying it'll be fine. Yeah, of course. Of course. Talk to me if you wish, yes. Talk to these guys, right? They are happy to help, I'm pretty sure. I'm asking you still. Okay, what did I do today? I wanted to get some stream stuff done, chit-chatting on that. Looking into that. I still have it open, I guess, in the tab. I was trying to get something for chat done. Like, I was thinking of getting IQ and stuff, so you can type exclamation IQ, it'll give you like a random IQ number of what your IQ would be. When are you usually busy? So I don't budget in the wrong time. It's okay. She's free all the time. Don't worry about it. I think she should be free all the time. I love how we assume I have an actual schedule. See? I told you, she's always free. L streamer? What did I even miss? You should shut the fuck up. Okay then. L streamer. I almost sound like a trimmer. Excuse me, I don't trim nothing. Pause. Pause. I'm saying like I'm not a trimmer. Hello Avinish, what is good, my friend? Well, you are much. Shut up. Please, I chose the wrong words. Please, shut the fuck up. No. Well, you are much older than me, and I assume adults are busy. Adults are busy. See, I am an adult, just saying. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am an adult. If you. Hello, Avinish. How are you doing, my friend? Been so long. Can't yet come to my stream after I come back for 2 days. You took 2 days, eh? Come to stream, bad boy. You be so natty. Okay. Too much, I see. Too much accent. My bad. I'll be like this. I know call up show up and stream. Cold? No. He's calling you ancient. Anyways. Yes, hello.
Clem,
Hi,
Clem,
Avinish.
hey.
Hi,
You left that
Avinish.
observation deck? I was just checking on Rebecca and Kenny. They said they hadn't heard from you in a while.
I don't guess there'd be
You should
much,
send me Rebecca.
but Jane seems pretty resourceful. God knows we could use a break.
Shouldn't you be with Rebecca?
No. Kenny's way more help with Rebecca than I could be. I'm just
Sorry,
making sure we
broski,
keep
I
track
am
of where
kinda
everyone
very
is.
busy even now.
Is Jane still up there now?
Unbelievable, my friend. Why are you so busy?
She's trying to get the gift
Can't
shop
believe
open.
this.
You know, I can't figure her out.
But then I remembered.
I mean, she really lays it on the line, but at the same time, she doesn't show you anything that counts.
I like her. She's honest, and she knows what she's doing.
I
Yep.
know, right?
That's more than I can say for some. Jane
then I
seems like the
remembered.
kind of person who gets
Yeah.
tempered by hardship.
Hey.
But
No!
look at Kenny now.
He
seems broken.
Do not point me out with my own stuff. Oh god, no. No! Damn it, no. There are reasons, good reasons for it. When are you not going to be busy? Yes. Oh yeah, he is very busy. I have to play Iceborne with this dude, and I've kept Iceborne aside because this guy is busy right now. Sad. No, don't you cut the clip. No. God damn it, it's such a sus clip.
People get reckless. I know you got a history with him. Look, I think he's a good guy. At least started as a good guy. But I just think he's had to take more than he can handle.
Are you any better? Is anyone?
Whoa, hold on. I didn't mean... I just want to survive. And that means picking the right sides.
Oh, hello, Z. Hello. She what?
I need to tell the others about the death.
Yeah, good. I will, I'll see you back there.
Hello, lad. There's some great advice. What do you mean? There we are gonna go say hello to the streamer I watch. Oh, you can say hello to me. Don't worry about it, Slay. What is this here? You don't have to be so formal about it. You can say hello. So happy Erin is here. Everyone is finally here.
Shit! Oh God!
Breathe like I told you.
Okay. Oh God! Oh God! Oh no!
Clementine!
Shit! Walkers!
How'd they get that close without anyone seeing them? The hell's Luke?
Kenny, we've got to do something.
You just keep that baby safe.
Kenny?
We can't stay here.
The museum. It's our only choice.
No, Jane and I found a
My
place.
jaw dropped. Huh. What is this? Hello. Hi there. I hope you miss a Y. Okay. I think you missed a Y. Yes. Wise words. Not still breathing along with her. No. Hey. I have to show her how it's done, right? It's a proper thing to do. Follow it. Of course. No, I was doing cough. I was shaking the damn cough syrup. Okay, I was like, well, I can't help it. I took out the cough syrup, so I was shaking it. But then I realized which I had was under the damn camera. Damn it. I'm really well. What I miss? Right here, there. Okay then. How's everyone? Still, why did I did not? For God's sake! Someone send the original actual clip. With the whole context. You know what? I'm gonna send the clip with context. Myself, I must clear my name that is being sullied. I must unsully my name. God damn it, stop yelling or you will need. Don't make it. Don't make it sound sus, god damn it. It's not.
Pani.
Thank you for the. It has cough syrup. Thank God. Thank God the context is right here. Not report clip. What? Gonna need to cough that shit up eventually. Anyways, yeah. I did not, right? Yeah. Anyhow, gotta cough that out. Yes. Wait till we redeem. This is his lungs at this point. I mean, yes. It's not okay. I don't have any bad habits, so I don't have none of the smoking and stuff habits. So nah. It couldn't be right. It couldn't be my lungs. My lungs should be just.
I'll show you.
It's just
Someone
cold.
help me up.
Oh God, there's so many.
Mike, help Kenny.
On it. Sarah, get going.
Jesus.
Clem, I don't think he's okay. He's losing it. I mean, that isn't...
He's doing it to protect us.
Sure, but
Let it get it out of the system, right? There you go. That's the context. And now what is said.
Kenny. Come on, man. Let's go.
I think Kenny would have died if I hadn't done that. I like how all of these zombies are in a really good drip, right? Always.
That's about as human as I've felt in a long time. I almost forgot what... Clementine!
It's idiot,
Jesus,
right?
Clem, it's just not... we were just... Clem, listen. Wait, what's going on?
In here. Let's get you comfortable.
What the fuck are you two doing up here?
Kenny, what's going on?
We got God knows how many walkers out there, which you were...
Well, how... See, I have one question, right? How are people not object-oriented? What? Objective-oriented, not object-oriented. What? Objective-oriented. That's not the main focus! Survive, damn it! And the stream to watch after this. Oh. Alright. Hey, it's your fault for shaking it. I was not thinking, okay? My mind was nowhere like that. I was thinking, then I realized, well, how weird it looks. Okay, there was no thought process till later. Yes, Java people. No! Sorry, 9:10. What the fuck? Time goes so fast, going so fast. I mean, yeah. Thank you for calling me entertaining.
Keeping an eye out for.
Hey, hold on a second. Just tell me what's going on.
What's going on is you're a reckless fucking moron.
I'm reckless. You know, you got a lot of nerve, Kenny.
Rebecca's having the baby.
Now? Fuck. I'm sorry.
I mean, she's saying otherwise,
Right
but okay.
overhead.
Oh, thank God, I didn't notice
They're coming
the
up
time.
the stairs. Here. We
The
should.
real
You
here.
want to help?
Okay.
Get out there and keep the walkers off us. I'll do this. I've been here before.
They can't rush us on the stairs. Shoot them before they get to us.
Shit, that's a lot of them. We need everyone out here.
What do I do?
Whatever you can, Clem.
I'm going outside. I'll help pull them back.
Go. I've got Rebecca.
Here they come.
Here. We can't let them up here.
No! Is he letting it now?
Shit! Keep shooting! They are not getting up here!
Cannon?
Find something to block this gate.
Help us!
We could block the gate with this.
I'll help, I'm coming. Together. Ready? Oh, shit.
Holy fuck! What the fuck is going on out there?
Get back! Get back!
Oh, shit!
Who fell down?
Sarah, hang on!
Fuck! Fuck, hurry! I can't hold on!
Help me!
Clem! Come on!
Help! Take my hand! No! No! No!
There's nothing we could have done. We could never have gotten her up here.
I know, but I wish it could be different.
Push!
I should
Oh,
tie.
They're climbing up. What? They're gonna make it up here.
Fuck! Does this shit ever end?
We need to break the rest of the deck.
She's right. She's right. Drop the whole deck.
Drop the... Are you fucking crazy?
How are we gonna do that?
I don't know. Just look around.
I know I'm supposed to keep up with chat. Give me a second. I will in a second.
Ain't gonna work. It's too thick.
This ain't working.
Apparently, I was wrong. Anyways, let me keep up with chat. No, I missed so much. No. Okay. How is the Abby coming out of pant? Oh, okay. Baby coming out of pant. I know. They said tied the stairs. Don't even tie the stairs. Birth through the nth dimension. Yes. Wonder how useful I'd be in such situation. Right. I am not. I'm not gonna say that statement right now. At this point, leave her. I mean, yeah, right. How? Sarah was a liability. Sarah gone. Yes. Drop the D. Huh? Suzume. Back. She has an axe. Did you just climb? Bruh. Got 8. I don't know, right? Tie a rope across the stairs. I don't know what happened.
There's nothing we could have done. We could never have gotten her up here.
I know, but I wish it could be different.
Push!
Oh shit. They're climbing up. What? They're gonna make it up here.
Fuck! Does this shit ever end?
Drop something else on them?
Nothing that will stop them.
Maybe we can drop the whole deck.
She's right. Drop the whole deck. Drop the... Are you fucking crazy?
How are we gonna do
What
that?
else is that?
Just look around.
Oh.
Crap. Look!
That'll work. We bust that, the whole thing comes down.
Boost me.
Boost me.
They're getting closer. Clementine!
Move it!
Come on!
This?
I'm going as fast as I can.
No shot is she's telling me to move it.
Watch it! Son of a bitch!
Don't think, do they? Would I stop?
Oh no.
What happened?
Penny, what?
Smack it. I know it's not crying. It's not stillborn. Just need to smack it. Smack it once, yes. Hold it upside down. Oh. It's not dead. Don't ruin it. You know. Okay. Beb, it all is well. Good movie. Yes.
Hey, Clementine.
Hey,
Did you get some
how's
sleep?
he doing?
Yeah, Ozzy has
He's
watched
perfect.
it. Ah,
He's a
say
perfect
all
little man.
is well. If baby don't cry. Alright
He's
then.
the most perfect little man in the whole world. You are. That's right. You are.
What are we gonna do now? We can't stay here, can we?
Wait, did they
I've gotta
leave the
rest.
big ass jug of
It's
water
getting
behind?
colder.
Kind of,
Clementine,
right? Based on
I
the
can't
situation,
think about
yeah.
that right now.
All
We'll
men
think
are
of
dogs.
something. Just not this second.
Thanks, mate. And call him a perfect
fine,
little
I'm
man.
fine.
Alright then.
I just wish I could get
Good
warm.
shit. Make a meal.
Clem,
Alright then.
why don't you give her that coat we
Lady,
found?
relax. Hey, yo, chill, lady.
Sorry, about the color.
You really think I care about that? Do you want to hold him?
Could I?
Of course. Your family. Here.
Your family. He's a pup, apparently. Hey, yo. What do you mean?
There you go.
You're a natural.
Shut up.
Look at you.
Shut the fuck
Like
up.
a big sister.
I agree, not gonna lie.
Here, let me take him. You
Alright
both
then.
should rest. Especially...
Apparently. Did he say something about
When's
the baby's
last time
color?
you slept, Kenny?
No, I did
About
not.
2 years ago.
I'm not
fine.
racist.
Plus, somebody's got to watch you while Mama gets her beauty sleep. You never forget that smell.
Anyways. I mean, I feel like she's gonna die. Likely.
Oh, shit.
What are you doing?
Listen, I'm sorry. I've gotta go.
I understand.
Good. I was worried this was gonna turn into a thing. You know, Jamie, Sarah, I'm not gonna stick around and watch it happen to you too. You know the score. You're a smart kid.
I'll be okay.
Sure.
This person, right?
But give it enough time, and everyone's luck runs out.
So yours will too, right? Get the fuck out of here, man.
Listen, when the shit hits the fan, 'cause it always does, remember that you can make it on your own. It's not an option for everyone. If things start heading
Unbelievable.
south, don't let them drag you down with them. You don't owe
Either
them
got
anything.
eaten or died when the rest of the deck
They'll
dropped.
make you feel like you do.
Either or,
Like
it's
it's
a
all one happy
GG's.
family. And when push comes to shove,
Yeah, I know.
good.
I
Okay.
get my some dinner. Alright, have fun with your dinner. Also, I am hungry as well. Speaking of dinner.
You
It's
take care of
9:20.
yourself.
Okay,
I
fine.
mean that.
I have 30 minutes of stream
Here.
left. I think I'll be able to finish this chapter. Then I'll call it a stream.
Versatility is not overrated.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The resources are
I,
ours. Aren't you always?
I gotta
Hey,
go.
hey. Hey, no offense, right? It's GG's. That's all. See, I don't mind even if I go, people say, you know what, it was GG's. I'll be like, yeah, they know what it is. They know how it is. No calling anything, huh? No calling anything, until I eat something. Until I. What? Okay. I just.
Thought you'd be asleep by now. You okay?
I can't process that right now.
It's nothing, Luke. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Just checking in with you.
Temperature's dropping. We're low on food. I think we gotta stay put for a while. You know, for Rebecca and the baby. So I'm thinking as soon as it gets light, Jane...
So what I think is, if I went to save Sarah, right? Sarah would have died, regardless. Even Jane would have died. I wouldn't have got the nail file, which I might need in the future. So I don't know. That's how I'd hope. But
Now I
people,
should go explore.
no
see if we
calling
can
it
find
a
some place to
stream.
scavenge.
Oh, okay. Won't. There's still what 30 minutes left. No calling anything,
What?
anything. All right, that's what you meant. I
Jane left.
understood.
For good.
What? When?
Just
I'd
now.
hope.
Are you serious? She didn't say anything about leaving to me? What the
Pick the
fuck?
bucket. It is how it is, my friend. The game is.
Damn it!
Game is a game. The life game is a game. It's what it is.
Hey, keep it down.
Sorry. Sorry. Just... Jane's gone.
Really? Luke, of all the childish bullshit. Childish? God damn it, Kenny. You know what? Just lay off. No, you put our lives, this baby's life at risk, so you two can roll around like fucking teenagers. Look, I made a mistake, all right? No, it's not all right. What do you want from me?
You guys are both acting like jerks. All you guys do is fight.
Look, I'm sorry, okay? I fucked up. But you know what, Jane? She made an offer, and Jesus Christ, I needed it, okay? I mean, look around you, okay? Everything is shit. So forgive me for wanting to enjoy one moment of something else. Fine, but this baby, he's what matters now. Got it? So get your shit
Kenny,
together.
Where's my baby?
Is everything all right?
That's how I'd hope. Where is that
Everything is
inside his
fine.
throat?
We're gonna
This
need a
room
good place to
sucks.
raise him, which ain't here. We gotta push on.
We head north, get to Wellington. That's our best shot.
There's a town across the river. It might be safe there.
Or at least it might be a good stop on the way.
Kenny!
I'm sorry.
Clem's got a point.
No, the mother
that could
did
be
not
a
die,
whole
actually.
town full of supplies, and not that far from here.
Whole lot better than
She
here
didn't-
anyway.
never mind. No,
Looks like that's our best
don't
bet.
kill the
We
poor
need to
mother.
get on the road
Stop.
as soon as possible.
Hello,
We
Tom.
leave at first
I
light.
didn't see her.
What are you talking about?
She's
Rebecca
resting.
needs rest. A few days at the least.
We've got that baby formula.
And won't help the rest of us. And what about shelter? We'll freeze out here.
Luke's right. She needs to rest. We should wait a few days.
Maybe that's for the best. We don't want to push Rebecca too hard.
Hello,
Just give me a day
senpai.
or two,
Senpai.
I'll be fine.
Hello.
This is a mistake.
I
But
see you like
we should
anime as
all
well.
try to
Mama,
get some
mama,
sleep.
my kind of dude.
It's been a long
Love the
day.
animes. Yeah. Recently, I haven't started any new anime this season, right? Yet. I'm hoping for some. There's some really good ones, so I want to start it. But again. Oh, wait. Aussie. Aussie. Aussie senpai.
Okay, Beck?
Kinky.
gonna be
Anyways. No one asked. God, it's a white. White? White term? My brain is gone, right? It's cooked right now. My brain is cooked as fuck. Anyways, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Please follow. Thank you. Follow stream. Thank you. This is chapter 4, right? So there's chapter 5. So that is it. I don't think I'm gonna stop chapter 5 today though.
You alright?
She's exhausted. We all are.
Why are you blaming Kenny for?
Keep going.
He did his best. Kenny is doing his best. Everyone just blames him for no reason. Damn. Okay then.
We should have
Alright
left
then.
right away, instead of waiting around. We could have found more food and been someplace warm days ago.
We did the right thing. She was in no condition to move.
She's worse now.
We could still turn back.
That's not an option. Everybody
house
hang in there.
children
We
getting
gotta
more
keep moving
actively.
if we're gonna make it to that town before nightfall.
You don't even listen to anyone else. You just go
Sure.
on barking orders. You
That's
gotta
fine.
lighten up. Okay, you're pushing them
Isn't
too
helping.
hard.
I'm just
We
doing
had
what
to
has
keep
to be
going.
done.
We
Like
are all
always.
tired.
Keeping people alive.
You're not helping anything by arguing.
Well, don't forget you agreed with me about waiting to leave camp until today.
What the fuck? Okay.
Oh,
Alright. I'm just getting yelled at.
It's a place to sit.
Why make her carry the baby? I know, right? Clementine could carry the baby.
Let me take the baby.
No, she just doesn't want to give the baby, I think.
I've got him.
Oh yeah,
No.
I don't think she's giving the
rest for a
baby.
minute.
That's why.
I'll wash him.
Back off, Kenny. She said she doesn't want you to take the baby. Don't be weird about it, okay?
I ain't being weird about it.
Yeah, you kinda have been. And not just right now.
Don't get all bent into a pretzel. I was just trying to help. People are too damn sensitive sometimes.
Hello?
Okay.
What is this?
Меня слышно?
Arvo?
Arvo?
Jane and I met him on the observation deck. Before everyone else came.
You know this son of a bitch? Well, what's he want?
He doesn't look like much.
That ain't the point.
Hello? Please?
He has a sick sister. They
So,
might be in
drop the
trouble.
No. No, drop the baby.
All right.
Hello. Your name is Clementine. Yes?
Hi, Arvo.
These are your friends?
These
I'm
are
hoping you
you.
can help me now. Not like before. All of you can help.
How is your sister doing?
Sister? Not so good. I need,
Okay.
things for bandages. I need bandages.
Are you hurt?
No.
Никакие оружия! Никакие оружия! Никакие оружия! Fuck!
Это они? Да, это они.
Floating gun, yes, of course.
Скажи им, чтобы они
Floating
поставили
gun.
их оружие на пол, и что мы забираем все, что они имеют.
Russians,
Что
obviously.
ты хочешь, чтобы я взял?
Откуда я знаю? Чтобы у их не было.
We don't want any trouble.
I told them you are the ones who robbed me. They think it's funny that you're just a little girl.
Robbed?
And they want you and your friends to put down the guns, so we can take your things.
Whoa, whoa, hang on now.
What the hell?
Why get excited?
Clementine, you robbed this guy?
It wasn't me who took your stuff. It was Jane. It wasn't any of us.
Jane, where's the other woman?
Что происходит?
Их было двое раньше.
Еще один?
Не здесь? I do not see a woman who was with you.
She's gone. She left the group.
It's a trap. I know it. Они прячутся. Я знаю, что они прячутся. This could be easy for you.
Арва, скажи, чтобы они опустили
We didn't take the
All of
medication though. What
you,
the
just
fuck?
put your guns down. This will be fine.
Find my ass! Слушай, Арва, почему они не...
We have a baby!
You have a baby with you? У них грудничковый ребенок.
Если ты знаешь, что хорошо для тебя,
Просто
опусти
верни
оружие
лекарство, вот
сейчас!
такое
И слишком много! Бурико, отойди! Drop that now or I'm gonna fucking shoot it! I'll do it!
No.
Drop it! Drop it! Don't move! I said don't move! Ты хочешь умереть? Извини меня. Ты думаешь, что я хороший мужчина?
Бурико, остановись! Опусти оружие! Тебе незачем этого делать! Не стреляйте! Я не хочу умирать!
Don't make me do it! Look at me! Do you hear me? I will kill you if I have to!
No!
Why would I think shooting was the right idea? I don't know, okay? I was thinking about the baby more than anything else. She turned into a zombie. Don't hit me! Don't hit me! Not bitten. So thing is, right, in The Walking Dead, we do realize, end of the episode, the next episode I'm gonna play tomorrow. So in Walking Dead, there is a theory, okay, not a theory, there's a known fact that it's not bite that turns you into a zombie. The current world situation is that if you die, you turn into a zombie. That's how it works. How long it takes is not a factor. So, you probably don't remember, but in first season, chapter 2, episode 2, these guys get a guy whose leg they chop off, he bleeds out and dies, and instantly turns into a zombie. So we do know that fact. Yes. Yes, there we go. That's what happened. I am not at fault. I made the right choice to save the child. My whole objective was child. You remember how she was very weak? She died as the time went on. Doesn't change the fact that you shot her. Yes. Yes. Depending on the situation, I would pull the trigger. If I were to save someone from danger, yes, it's possible. Again, I don't have a gun, I'm not licensed either, so IRL I wouldn't. But in a game, yes, I made the most practical thinking stuff possible. Y'all dead. I don't think we all are dead. Few seconds before no care. Okay. Rip indeed. While they are arguing, she passed out, then came back. She passed out? No, she did not get bitten. You don't have to get bitten. Walking Dead things, yes. They got her at gunpoint. I'm still confused. She didn't get it. I mean, the thing is, right? Yeah, she didn't get bit. So, if I would have either shot or I would have called for help, it should have caused chaos. Eventually there would have been gunfire over there, right? I don't know how many people died or what. I don't know what happened. Regardless of method, you turn when the brain isn't destroyed. Exactly. So, yeah. I don't know, right? I don't know what was the right option over there. I think I did the right option. That's all I know. I think I did the right option, right? I think I did the right choice. I feel like I took the right choice to save the child. I don't know. I might have completely destroyed the group. That's a possibility as well. Also, we didn't rob the guy. Okay, I gave him back the medication. That's some bullshit that the guy was talking about. I'd have done the same thing. You're good, Sid. You did what you had to do. Exactly. The child was meant to die. The child, no. It's very unlikely that the child is dead. I'm definitely sure Clementine is not dead. She's the main character. If she is gonna die, dare I say, it's gonna be at the end of the season. That's how it works. Maybe Jane stole the medicine back. I don't think so because she was already gone. She just had the weapon. And she was busy fornicating or something after that. As far as I know. Maybe Jane stole we don't know about the child. Yeah. The child is fine. The baby is fine. I'm pretty sure about it. But I don't know about the other situation. But the baby saw something very scary. I don't know, right? It's kind of like a game where no matter what decision you take, you will go follow a particular path. So, yeah. I would say it wouldn't have been great regardless. So wait, if I want to understand what happened, I will have to play chapter 5. Hey, no way I'm leaving all of you guys with a cliffhanger, right, for a whole day. I'm gonna play a bit, then I'm gonna stop. Baby has trauma. Baby has Batma. I just said BRB but never came back. He's busy, right? He was talking about how busy he was.
Killing one in order to save many is part of survival.
We will get to know what happened.
Wait a minute.
Half hour more.
Put you out of your
I know, I'm just gonna play a little and then stop. I just want to know what the cliffhanger position was in.
He seems broken. Broken people get reckless.
Here. Thanks. If things start heading south, don't let them drag you down with them.
Drop that now or I'm gonna fucking shoot it! I'll do it! Drop it! Drop it! Don't move! I said don't move!
Everybody be cool.
Here's power. I was late because I had my cousin show up and I was talking to them. What do you mean? Are you telling me I made a mistake by shooting the zombie? My god, I wanna see what my decision caused. I think that no matter what, this would have been the situation. No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. This is how it's supposed to go. Woke up like half an hour ago.
Out there.
What a piece of shit you are, Luke. You suck. All you think about is with your wrong head. Idiot.
shots at us till he runs out of ammo.
So quit talking about it and do it!
Yeah, all right.
Interesting start for the day, I see Lex.
It already is. You can just go.
Это твоя вина! Ты, сукин сын! Я замочу каждого из вас!
English, motherfucker.
I kill every one of you!
If I can just get over to that side of the wall, I can maybe get an angle on this guy. Cover me, all right? Just shoot over towards the woods. Hey, it'll give him something to think about.
I'll try.
Yeah? Okay. Good. Good.
What is
I just need the
KW?
distraction.
KW is a laughing emoji.
All right. I'm
Good evening, y'all. Sarah gone. Sarah gone.
Hey, what are you?
Oh my.
Luke, no! Luke, are you okay?
Oh, he got me in the leg, but I think it went straight through. Shit, I don't know. We'll be fine.
God damn it. English, motherfucker. They speak English. Why is his head out?
Отпусти меня! You get out here, or I put a bullet in this kid's hand. Shut up!
Отпусти меня, прошу! Я должен быть с ней!
Kenny, what are you doing?
I'm into this. Get out here, right fucking now!
Ты замочил Наташу! Ты ублюдок! Он и так похудел!
Fight me, what? Think I'm bluffing? Get out here!
No.
Перестань! Отпусти меня! Я должен посмотреть, если здесь все в порядке!
Stop squirming, damn it!
Natasha, such a Russian name, right? I'm sorry. Die honestly.
Я оставлю медленно тебя истекать! Человек!
Oh. I think saving Jane was a really good idea.
It's safe to come out.
Here, I got him.
Cruel. I mean, it's an eat or be eaten world. I can't help it, right? So why did she leave? I don't know, right? She's like, this group is fucked.
Jesus
if you're in this group, you're
That
gonna
was,
end up dead.
That was intense.
I thought that was it.
That's so
It
stupid,
was
right?
for these assholes.
Are you okay?
I think so. I didn't know this man. I never killed someone that didn't wrong me in some way, that didn't deserve it. Tried to pretend he was a walker. But it's different.
You saved us.
Yeah, that's why I did it, but it felt wrong.
What happened to the boy? Boy is there. I think the boy should be there. He's there.
Come on.
Okay.
She's competent, right? But how are people competent yet stupid, right? I don't understand. People can resent me for this, but I did what I had to do. I made the tough choice.
How did this happen?
She turned. Just like that.
Clem spotted it first. Did what she had to protect the child.
This
I don't want to
isn't
hear
your
any
fault,
bullshit on
okay?
any of you guys, okay? I did what I
She
had to
just-
do, like they're saying.
She just lost too much blood. It ain't nobody's
I
fault.
mean, the boy is
You
alive.
saved
The
the
boy is
boy's
alive.
life.
He's sitting over there.
You know, we could have done better by her.
I mean,
She
yes.
was just too far gone.
She would have been a good mom.
Yeah, she would have. Don't worry,
Indeed.
Becca. We'll take care of your boy.
What's the name of the boy?
You piece of shit!
Hey, hey!
Stop!
Guys!
Get off
guys,
me!
come on!
It's over, man. He ain't a threat to us.
How can you say that? Of course he is! Get out of the way!
Whoa! What are you doing?
I'm doing the same thing this asshole tried to do to us.
It doesn't have to go down like that.
He wasn't the one shooting at us. That guy's dead.
Just because he don't have a gun doesn't mean he wouldn't have.
Well, he didn't, so leave him alone.
There is house, food. Please. Please, I can take you.
Bullshit.
No.
Yeah. How is alive, see?
We have place. Not far. Food.
See? He wants to help.
Oh, don't be stupid. He's just trying to save his skin.
I mean, she was
Why the
weak
hell
as
would
fuck
you
after
help
that,
us?
right? I knew she was gonna die, but
I now want to see more people dead.
Then close your eyes and I'll make it quick.
Kenny, back off.
If he's telling the truth, it could save all of us.
We need the food. None of this will matter if we all starve to death.
She's right, Kenny. We're running low on supplies as it is.
It's worth the risk to check this place out. Trust him, don't trust him, it doesn't matter. We should go anyway. We just need to be careful. It can't be far from here.
You stay out of this. You're the reason these fuckers came after us in the first place.
Don't try and pin this on me.
Lay off, Kenny. She just helped us.
It doesn't matter why it happened. We have to move on.
Think about the baby, Kenny. If there's supplies, we need them. We ain't gonna last much longer without more food. We gotta take a chance.
Unless someone's got a
use
better
the
plan.
baby in the conversation with Kenny. He'll chill down. He'll chill out for a second.
We got something to tie this shitbird up.
Yeah, I got something.
Follow me, I take you.
Just give me a reason.
Yeah, man, he gets it.
Can I continue from? Okay. If I were to say main menu, accept. So I were to continue. It will continue from that. I can live with that. Yeah, I can live with that. I can live with that. That's how we talk about me now. The Indian accent of it. Oh. Anyhow, did Sarita die? Who? Yes. Maybe opened his eyes as so soon. I know, right? The Indian accent of it. I don't know. Probably. That's how you talk about me now. Choice of words, right? Damn. Okay. I need to get food. I'm hungry. Anyways, I should be checking the damn list. Streamer mode. Okay, let me check the list. Let me check the list. Oh my god, so hungry. I is so hungry. I actually am very hungry, right? Oh yes, there it is. Pinned comments. I could check this out. Oh, what is Apple Farm? How long is his experience? Also, download and play. I am sorry. I is no download and play today. Download and play is a task and a half for me. Some days in hell. That's a warp. That's a warp? What is that's a warp? Oh no, I think I know what this is. No, I don't want to use my brains today. Thank you. It's already used. I had to make really tough calls today. Don't tell me to play. Use my brains. You know what fucking games it is. It literally says warp, WARP, warp. You don't call it warp? Not a WAP, not a WAS. Anyways. Oh, it's Pokey, my bad. Poke games. I'm sorry, I might have fucked up. I might have fucked up. Again, house, Hobart, house, yeah, house. I know what I said. Damn it, I know what I said. House. Yes, I know what I said. What is this? Circus contest. Okay. Oh, so hungry, right? My brain feels... I feel lightheaded a bit. I did finish this game, right? Samsara. Reminds me of... what is it again? Rusty Lake, yes. Rusty Lake. Reminds me of Rusty Lake. Yes. Not anything else, clearly. Boy, I am indeed hungry. Can I get one good game? A quick one that I just can play and leave it. Don't be bothered with it. Actually, the pet store thing was actually tempting. I want to go find it again. Your hose reminds me of a clip. Wait, let me find it. Okay. Quat. Always hungry. I am hungry, right? I haven't had anything since my afternoon. What is that? Lunch? No, yeah, lunch. Sorry, my brain, right? It's end of the stream already. Okay, my brain is very, very tired, and also I am sick. My brain not working fast enough. War of Stick. I could do this, but again, I don't think that's something that you would like to watch. Merge Arena. I like merge games, right? See, weirdly enough, right? Playing a game, actually, we play some. Okay, quick question. Okay, what time is it? It's 10 minutes. How many are up for a scribble? How many of you are up for scribble? Nah, not football. Just a one quick scribble game. Gartic. A whole Gartic will be too much. No, it will take a lot of food. Oh, boy. 2:05? What am I looking at? 2:05. 2 hours, 5 minutes? What am I? 2:05. Okay. Oh, in the video. You play spam messages. I will miss everything. Say it once. I will find it. Photographer.
Tell me, fashion photographer.
Fashion photographer.
On my show. I admire your work quite sometime. I admire your work. पहला वाला बताना. I admire your work. एक बात सुने. ये सामने रख दो ना.
हाँ दोस्त बंद है अम्मा 5 minutes start man बंद है 5 minutes okay photographer. Oh, that's it. I actually looked up 2-5, right? I don't think I can play Gartic either, right? You know what? We'll do Gartic show. We'll do Gartic show for a quick run and then we'll call it a quits. Right. It'll be easier as well. Genius. Genuine. Gen 1. Gen 2. Gentleman. Also, I need to move my camera. So much work. Oh my god. I'm actually hungry as fuck as well. Yeah. Sorry, I'm being a bit drama today. I'm actually extremely tired, right? And my stomach is growling and I don't think my mic is picking up. Thank God. Camera overlay, goodbye. My camera. There you go. Bathroom. To the bathroom we go. That's a bit big, but should be fine. And yes, 90 seconds. I'm gonna give like 10 rounds. Okay, quick 10 rounds. 90 seconds. Okay, 90 seconds. Sure. System words. Sure. Oh yeah, you can see the chat as well. Yes, I know, but again, I can't stop stream early. Yes, the streamer's drawing. Start. Hey, yo, lads, let's see how smart you guys are today. How you smarts you spill today. Yes, English I cannot. I think this is what it is. It was right. Hits got it. I saw Hits mess up the spell, so I was like, oh, okay. Both of these are so difficult. Which one do I go with? I can make one of them, but none of you will get the answer for sure. Do I test your limits? Sure. I'll give hints, okay? I'll give hints for this. Because I don't believe anybody will be able to guess this. No, actually. Okay, I'll give you hints now. It's close to a ramen. It's close to a ramen, but it's not a ramen. It's close to a ramen, it's not a ramen. Exactly, that is it, right? Yes, that is the one. But I don't think anybody will get it. I see my point. It starts with a Y. It's yaki something. Soba close, but something soba. I told what the something is as well. You just had to. There you go. Slay got the other half. Hitch got the first half. I mean, second half. So, nobody got it. Damn it. So close. Yakisoba. Yep. SS though. SS. Close. Double S. I told you, right? Nobody. The other one was actually kind of simpler, but yeah. Sure. 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 Think of a sus 3-letter word. That's all the hint I'm gonna give. Okay. It's supposed to be a towel being, Anywho. Anywho. Anyways. Such 4-letter word. Such 4-letter word. Thus. I saw this after the first word, right? I was like, gotta, right? I gotta do this. Almond, yes. I could have gone with something else, but I went with this. Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Nice job, good job. Good job. This shouldn't be difficult, right? I'm still drawing. It's a fruit. I think it's a fruit, yes. Why are you guys struggling? It's so easy. Come on, lads. Yes. Somebody struggle. What is this papaya watermelon and shit? What the fuck? Hey, no watermelon like this. I would have made black seeds, no? Not racist, no racist, but still. I would get the colors right. Come on. Wait, I need to check this out, right? If I'm gonna draw this. I have an idea, but still. Okay, I got a reference to draw from. So you guys are gonna see some masterpiece now. I am still gonna struggle, that doesn't change. Do you think I would need a reference to draw a damn house? How low do you think I am with my skills? Unbelievable. I was gonna say, someone will get it, right? I was gonna say, someone will get it. No shot. There you go, finally. Daddy, father. Huh. There you go. Somebody got it. They got. Alright. This should be easy, right? First art. You guys figure this out. I'm gonna draw something else till then. Close, close. Band is close. There you go. I was expecting someone to get that. I really doubt you would struggle. Anyone would struggle with this one. Let's see. Can't decide what to draw it with. There we go. Okay. Alright. Oh, Sith gave up, right? Anyways, thank you for watching, people. I am gonna quickly undo all the changes I did to my stream. There you go. Alright. I is now... No, dude, I did go have food. My mom was yelling at me saying that I eat food. So yes, 5 rounds. No, I'm gonna get yelled at. I said 5 minutes and it's been like 15. So yes, I'm gonna call it a stream right here. I'm gonna continue this tomorrow though. You can continue this tomorrow. Let's see how it goes. Anyways, people, thank you for watching, and I am gonna leave. Bye. Love you, brothers. Love you, my viewers. Thank you so much for watching stream, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Peace. Bye bye. I am end streaming. You guys enjoy. I'm gonna come and stop stream later. Bye. Wait.
She in love with the money, all she wanna do is fuck though. Sitting in the bag while I'm stacking up the hundos. Club going dumb from the drum on the 1-1. I'm already buzzing where I come from. Oh, bitch wanna be friends, and again, that's time I don't really wanna spend. Say I'm pretty and I'm nice with a pen. Need a little bit of ice and the keys to a Benz. Shake your ass, make that bounce and throw that back. Shake your ass, then she give me face like a goddamn mask. Bitch, I got the Renegon, seeing what they been upon. Bustin' on the bitch, got her looking like it's in a bond. I've been with this in the sun, they been doing minimum. Bitches playing games, doesn't matter, I've been winning on. Hey, show girl, why am I getting text? Say you might wanna check for my pipe in the neck. And my shit so trash, why am I getting checks? Said I look Super Saiyan God form.